So, how is the specimen?
Well, no signs of movement. Ever since he broke into that one guy's house 2 Christmas back. What is he?
He's an anomaly. He goes to random people's recording booths when he senses someone making a hypothetical situation.
So, like a theory?
Don't say that! We figured out that he'll react every single time when a hypothetical is proposed or that word is spoken. So whatever you do, do not propose anything.
Hey, you guys wonder how big Gehenna Academy is?
You fool! What have you done?!
Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory, and whew, that took a while. Today we are returning back to the world of Blue Archive, the mobile gacha game that is filled with tons of lovable characters with varying characteristics, from animalistic, angelic, or even devilish features. And yes, your eyes are not deceiving you, they're carrying guns and use them to fight each other. Do not worry, since they are pretty much immune to bullet shots, they're akin to getting shot by BB guns. I could go on and on about this game because it's honestly really interesting, like how despite the girls being relatively young, some of them are able to tank life-threatening injuries for normal people. That somehow relates back to the student's halo and the power that grants. If you're interested in the game itself, go check it out. It's free on mobile, and they recently released a Steam client, so it's also available to play on PC. Anyways, despite me rambling on and on about the halos just now, that's not exactly what I want to talk about. You see, ever since the last theory video, there's one topic that I want to talk about but never really had the chance due to certain circumstances. In the last theory, we talked about how Shirko is somehow connected to the ancient Egyptian gods, and how Abydos is based off of Egypt, which is a pretty easy observation in retrospect. But it's still something interesting to point out, and that got me thinking. If Abydos is based off of Egypt, how big is Abydos? And when you think more about it, you start to think more about how big each and every single school is. How exactly big are they? Now with that question in mind, let's start digging, shall we? Now before we jump straight into it, let's talk about what Kivotos is. Kivotos is what's known as an academy city. A city made up of multiple schools covering an area which are then divided into multiple different districts. In addition to that, Kivotos is a very technologically advanced city, with the use of holograms, robotic machinery, railguns, etc. This city is home to a variety of citizens, from anthropomorphic people, robots, or even polar bears, who went to go to the beach to fish. Huh. And of course, we have the students who are mostly humanoids, but they can have features that differentiates them from other characters. That's just character design 101. And also they carry guns, because according to one of the characters, it's very weird to see a student not carry a gun 24/7, which is funny to think about. And yes, it is important to note that Kivotos is a pretty big academy city. Think of it as the academy city in a certain scientific railgun. The concept of an academy city should be somewhat similar to that. Heck, they even had a collaboration with Blue Archive around a year ago. And it's also important to note that in addition to Kivotos being a large city, it also covers a wide area outside of it. We got tundras, deserts, and even sakura blossoms, which can only grow in certain parts of the world. We'll talk about this more later. Now with a simple understanding of what Kivotos is, let's start with the rules. Or at least one single guideline. I won't be using any of the game CGs to calculate the exact size of each school. Now there are two reasons for this. For one, the locations don't really match up. In multiple parts of the game, certain backgrounds will be used for multiple locations. That's because Blue Archive is a visual novel game. Reusing assets not only save money, but also saves a lot of time. It's pretty unnecessary to make a different background of a shopping mall for each different shopping malls. And the second reason is, well, we'll talk about this in a bit. So with that in mind, let's calculate the exact sizes of each school in Kivotos. Kivotos has a total of 14 schools that we know of, but we're only interested in half of these. That being Abydos High School, Gehenna Academy, Millennium Science School, Trinity General School, Hyakuyaku Alliance Academy, Shanhaijing Senior Secondary School, and Red Winter Federal Academy. And there is a reason why. Some of these locations just don't have the proper reference to see how big they are. Valkyrie does appear in Dio Shiratori City, but it's only the branch. It's a police station with tons of departments all over Kivotos. It's not the main one. Arios only has CGs, SRT Academy is a dissolved branch, and we've never really seen the rest of these four outside of them being mentioned by some of the characters like Yuka, or the fact that some students from these academies made appearances every once in a while. So in the end, we're only going to be finding out how big these 7 schools are. And to do that, we're going to be using the Lessons tab. The Lesson tab allows us to visit each location and build bond levels with the characters. But we're not gonna focus on that. What we're going to focus on are these, the overhead view of each location from the school. Awesome! We got the perfect reference to figure out the exact size of each location. But then here's where I get to reason 2 of me not using any of the game CGs. It's just, too inconsistent. Like in Trinity's Plaza, where this building just doesn't seem to appear anywhere on the overhead view, and the front gate of Abydos High School not lining up to where it is in the game CGs. Abydos itself is a weird case in general, because if you take each location shot of Abydos from the anime, the game CG, or even the overhead view, it's just, they're not really consistent. So for now, I'll just be sticking to the overhead view that we got from the Lessons tab. Although, using the CGs might help in some other ways. Now, how exactly are we going to calculate the size of each location? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be using some good old pixel measurements. If you don't know what pixel measurement is, it works by taking how many pixels it takes from point A to point B, and then use real-life measurements to convert the pixels to meters, which we can then use as a base to measure the width, height, and even area of a certain location. So with that in mind, let's start off with the first of 7 schools, being Gehenna Academy. Now the first thing that might come to your mind is why I picked Gehenna first rather than Abydos, a way smaller school compared to Gehenna. Well, we're not trying to find something based on the size first, but based on what's easiest to calculate first. And Gehenna has the perfect comparison size out of all of the schools, that being a football field. If a football goal has a width of 7.32 meters, we can compare it to the one that's on the field. Yes, it's that tiny. And football field size comes out at around 45 meters in width and 84 meters in length, which isn't too far off from the real-life dimensions. So that's it then. We just take the area of a single pixel, multiply it with the amount of pixels in this one single area, and we're done. Right? Right? Well, not really. You see, there's one problem that I kinda glossed over in the pixel measurement explanation. This map is on a 3D angled surface. Pixel measurements don't really work that well in this scenario. It works best if it's in a 2D image. And the way that I found the area of a single pixel doesn't really feel right to me. So I decided to do something, and that is modifying the image by straightening out the map. Trust me on this. Despite each pixel being a square, we can assume that they have different dimensions for each axis. That means a pixel can cover the length and width of an area differently. So with that in mind, I modified the image into a straightened version, recalculated everything, and got a result that Gehenna is sized at 547,271 square meters. That's around 135 acres. To give some perspective, the average high school academy takes up around 20 to 40 acres. Gehenna is a little over 3 times bigger than that. It's also a good time to mention that if you were to use the 45 and 90 meter dimension a real life football field takes up, it still rounds up to the exact same length per pixel in the original 45 and 83 calculations. So we're not gonna think too much about that part. After calculating the size of Gehenna, we can now calculate the dimension of the parking lot and the road, so we can use it to calculate the size of other schools. Kivotos is a place that connects thousands of academies, so I'm assuming that the dimensions for the roads and parking space should be somewhat consistent. So because of that, I'll assume that they all have the exact same dimensions. With that in mind, we can start by calculating Trinity's size, and it comes out at an astounding 1,770,315 square meters. That is incredibly big! But if you think about it, it does make sense. If you look at Trinity as a whole, they have tons of gigantic buildings, including the massive Trinity Cathedral and even the Central Library. Both of them are bigger than what I presume to be the main school building in Trinity. And it's also good to mention that Trinity is comprised of 3 main factions, so it's not really that big of a surprise if 3 academies just form into one gigantic academy. Abydos, on the other hand, is a slightly bit different. You see, the size of the parking space is different from the one facing north to the one facing east, and that is the result from this being a 3D image straightened out. The size of Abydos High School is around 50,000 to 57,000 square meters. It's around 7,000 square meters off, but the margin is around this range. And if you look at it, Abydos is incredibly small compared to the others. And well, it matches the story. In Blue Archive, Abydos got hit with a desertification, which makes the area mostly a desert wasteland, and they had to relocate their original high school location to Abydos' satellite branch. According to the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, schools are organized into clusters, usually consisting of a central, relatively well-resourced school and several smaller satellites. That means that the main high school location, being the original Abydos High School, has several smaller schools called satellite schools that still follows the main school subjects. But the locations are spread out to give more people access to education. So with 3 out of the 7 schools figured out, let's start with the next one on the list. Based on the calculations we got from Gehenna, we found out that each road is around 4.5 meters in width. And from that, we can practically calculate the size of each school. At this point, I'll be ranking them by how big they are. As we all know from before, Trinity is the biggest, with 1.7 million square meters. Next up is actually Red Winter, covering an area around 807,304 square meters, with the Red Winter office taking up a majority of the place and the empty areas that are around the school. Next up is Millennium, with 590,755 square meters. And wow, Millennium is very big. which makes sense. We can see it through the train. The fact that they even have one suggests that Millennium is crazy massive. One loop around Millennium with the train takes about 1 minute and 15 seconds. The fourth biggest is Gehenna, with 547,271 square meters. Gehenna, being one of the largest schools, does fit in the lore. They are the fourth biggest out of hundreds of schools, unless they're talking about student enrollments, which I'm not sure. The fifth and sixth biggest schools respectively are Hyakkyaku and Shanhaijing, with 169,084 square meters and 136,672 square meters respectively, which doesn't sound right until you start to look a bit more. Looking at both of them, they don't have any structures that are comparable to Trinity's Cathedral or Red Winter's main office, but while they do lack in land area, they make up for it in density. The buildings in both of these schools are really close together, which makes up for the fact that they are small in comparison to other schools. And finally, we have Abydos High School, with the smallest and only school being in the double digits, covering around 50,000 to 57,000 square meters. In total, the combined size of every school comes out at around 4,078,401 square meters, which roughly translates to a little over 1,000 acres. To give some reference, New York City's Central Park is sized at around 843 acres, taking up around 6% of Manhattan. And even then, that is still not enough to fit every single school in Kivotos. And let's not forget that this is still just the academies. Remember, each school in Kivotos covers an area with multiple districts, big enough to a point where there are abandoned cities in Millennium and even hidden branches of Trinity that is Abydos. What I'm saying is that Kivotos is incredibly big. But just how exactly big is it? Well, thankfully that was the same question that was asked by Reddit user YannFrost, who calculated a rough estimate size of Kivotos 3 years ago. And he got it not from a major story point, not from an event story like Decagrammaton, but from Shiroko Cycling's Bond story. In her story, she mentioned that she'll be riding around Kivotos for the next few weeks, and by the end of episode 4, she has completed her trip around Kivotos. According to Shiroko, it takes 3 weeks to travel 4,000 kilometers. If it takes her 9 weeks to complete her lap, then she must have traveled around 12,000 kilometers. Assuming that Kivotos is a giant circle, that would equate to 4.4 million square miles. The United States of America and Canada combined equates to around 3.8 million square miles. But this explanation just doesn't seem right to me. Remember, I did say that this gave us a rough estimate. This is assuming that Kivotos is a giant circle, which if you look at most countries and landmasses on Earth, none of them are fully circular, including the borders around every country. So I dug slightly more deeper, and by that I just scrolled down to see another person point something out. Reddit user Clairvoidance mentioned that in Blue Archive's 4th PV, you can see that they showed the map of Kivotos, and the same user also mentioned that this is just the map of Europe. And if you look closely at these two landmarks, then yeah, this is practically just the map of Europe. Does that mean that Blue Archive takes place in Europe of all places? Well, I guess. I mean, that's what they're implying, so it should be, right? But what if we don't stop here? What if we go a bit further? You see, in that map, we got to see the location of each false sanctums. These are gigantic towers that play a major part in Blue Archive's Volume F. And not only that, we can figure out the exact location of some of these places. These false sanctums, in order, appear in the Great Abydos Desert, closed area near Millennium, the abandoned amusement park in Diu Shiratori City, the border between Gehenna and Trinity, the new town near Millennium, and finally, the center of Diu Shiratori City. Using the boss map from the final Sanctum event, we can figure out the locations of each school that I mentioned before. Abydos is located around Poland and Belarus, center of Diu Shiratori City, and the two Millennium cities are in Russia, the abandoned amusement park is in Ukraine, and the border between Trinity and Gehenna is between Finland and Estonia, which might suggest that both of them are in both of these respective places. So, do I think this is correct? Well, I'm not entirely sure. Although I did try my best with stretching the image out, it's a bit hard when most of the map is almost not visible or covered by warning signs blocking out each landmark. And there's pretty much no way to figure out which false sanctum is which. I'm just guessing based off of the boss map that we have. But with that aside, there you have it, theorists! We managed to find the size of some of the well-known schools in Blue Archive. Do I think this is a perfect theory? No, far from it. There are certain factors and variables that I didn't take into account. But if you have any ideas or if you want to find out yourself, then you are more than welcome to. Because remember, that's just a theory. A game theory. And whoops, I think I gotta go. See ya.
Damn it! We lost him.
So, what do we do now?
Oh, we'll find him. Even if that means we have to chase him to the end of the world.